here's how we make our compost tea in Westchester. And here's the first question that came up. All right, so how do we do this? Well, you should conduct a soil sample so you know where you're starting from. Especially, what's funny though is that we only get NPK out of a lot of the soil labs because they're there for agricultural purposes, and because big ag is only putting down chemical fertilizers, they're really only interested in NPK. So that's what you have for now. When Dig Right In is collecting a soil sample, we're looking for all the biology, and so now a $20 soil sample goes up to $200 because they're looking for these guys. So that's the difference. When we tell people, hey, you've been doing this for 5 years, 3 to 5 years, let's take a soil sample and maybe stop the program of applying compost tea. And then they're like, how much? Nah, just keep doing the tea. I swear, no one has, we got one this year. She was willing to, I told her it'll be cheaper if we could just find out. So we got one coming up this year. Everyone else, they were like, nah, just keep doing it. Okay, because if a little's good, a lot is better.
My question about the $200 system, would that be, let's say it's a person with a big backyard. Would it just be the one little bit of soil that you take, or you maybe take it from a few sites and mix them together and then send them into the lab?
Yes. The question is, how do you collect a soil sample for preparation or any of these? And she's asking, is it just one spot? No, it's several spots of the lawn. So you get a composite sample. Yeah, that way you're not risking just that one spot. All right. So if you can start with the soil and know what you need, we can then tailor a program to bring in either more minerals, like later in the season, pump it up with a little more fungi, right? Fungus is unbelievably great in the soil.
So basically, you got to dial it in a way, right? I mean,
Yeah, or it's either dial it in because you haven't been or chemically applying chemicals for a long time, or you've been applying chemicals and we got to get going. So that's why I say, a third to 5 years.
Why is compost tea preferable to compost?
Okay. Why is compost tea preferable to compost? They're almost the same, except that when we brew the compost tea, here's the brewer, 250 gallons of water. We take the compost, put it in a bag, hook it up to these jets that blows air, oxygen into the water. Suddenly, 20 bacteria become 20 billion. The biology just takes off in its population, so we have a very nutrient-dense water that we're able to apply in a heavier than we would come with just that same amount of compost.
Okay, well, bear with me. Wouldn't that happen naturally if you have compost on the lawn or raised?
No, it's the oxygen. It's the blowing oxygen. These guys suddenly get a boost of life. They reproduce incredibly in that environment, in an oxygen-rich environment. That's the science. But don't let that dissuade you. If you're like sitting there this weekend and is like, well, should I wait for the tea or I've got the compost, put the compost down. Because that's just as good. You're bringing these guys in with every scoop. So, and you'll see a technique that only uses the compost coming up. We just happen to be able to manufacture tea on a large enough scale that we can distribute it commercially. And June 4th, what are you guys doing June 4th? We're selling it to the public, and I think we've been trying to figure out if you wanted to call and order a small batch, we're able to make small batches by reservation. So we'll get to that at the end.
Small batches
Of compost tea. Oh yeah, 5 gallons. That's all. 4 gallons per 1,000 square feet is roughly what you need. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's the soil sample getting into the compost tea or compost, and leaf mulch as well. So the leaf mulch is the part right after the leaf has started to break down and is still identifiable as, well, that's a leaf. And you can go out and see that in the beds from over winter. It's not that fall leaf. It's not yet compost. It's still a leaf. And why we like this is because this hasn't been eaten too much. When we have biologically active soil in our lawns, finally, they're hungry. They need a source of food, and we bring it in the leaf mulch. A little confusing, leaf compost, leaf mulch. One is just more food, one is mostly broken down. That's the difference.
If I wanted to look at in our townhouse association, we've been asking the landscapers to just leave the leaves in
Yeah.
this sort of section.
Mhm.
And I think the downside is it's killed a few autumn bushes, but it's been crowded. We didn't know about living space around the tree. But anyway, it's, it's built up. Now, the top layer right now looks kind of dry, like old dry leaf.
Yeah.
You just sort of scrape that off. You see this damp layer of the wet sort of pushed together leaves. Could that be the...
Yeah, that's leaf mulch. Correct. So she's describing what's in her yard. They have left the leaves over the fall. On top is the leaf that looks like the snow just melted. And if you scrape that away, you find a little bit darker brown, wet, but crumbly. That's the leaf mulch. And we can buy both of these, leaf mulch and compost, at the like Lake Street, as well as Anderson in Elmhurst. But don't get tied up in the difference too much, except to know that if we start leaving the leaves, we're providing food. Then there's this thing called biochar now. Who's heard of biochar? Okay, so what that is it's a byproduct of charring up old corn stalks, if you will. So it's an agricultural waste turned into little charcoal, almost dust. Looks like dust. Like almost put it on. So if the leaf mulch is the food, biochar is the housing for our soil food web, the little guys. Now they've got housing and food. All they need is some water next. Also, biochar will hold water 10 times its weight. So if this is in the root zone, holding water, making it available for plants, making the biology have its housing, look at what we're doing in the soil. We've brought everything nature would want there and more.
I was just going to ask the biochar if it's coming from corn.
Corn.
Is it GMO, if you're putting back
Oh.
GMO into...
I doubt there's so the question is, if it's coming from corn, are you putting down GMO in your yard? No, you're putting down burnt, crisp ashes from what's left over of that. So in most, I can't see how it would. It's not genetic anymore. It's dead. It's fired up. So I'm sure some studies need to be done to be sure, but I don't see how it survives the fire. Oh, maybe Estelle knows.
Yeah, I do know a little bit more about this because Roots sells the biochar, just the biochar for people who are do-it-yourselfers. They don't hire a lawn service like Jeff to do it for you. So if you want, so we will sell biochar by the cubic foot, and it comes from a company called Wakefield. We buy it from a company called Wakefield, which is in Missouri, and they make they put it in ovens. They put actually not corn stalks. This particular company is very much into super as organic as they possibly can. So they get it from trees. I think it's in the south in Alabama somewhere. So that's why we buy it, because we're very particular about what's in the ingredients that we sell. So, and then the other thing is because it's difficult to find really high quality leaf mulch, like if you need more leaf mulch, you can do it yourself, especially the edible garden people need a lot of leaf mulch because they put it down really thick on their vegetable beds. So we sell the leaf mulch in Oak Park so that you don't have to, drive like an hour to get it in bulk somewhere else or drive into the city. So we'll sell that also by the cubic foot. And it's made in huge, giant, very hot piles. It's manufactured in facilities that turn the leaves hot, which makes them much more squishy and able to keep a lot more water in. So we always recommend, especially if you're growing vegetables, I don't know if it applies to grass and lawns, but at least for vegetables, we prefer people to use the absorbent version of the leaf mulch so that it keeps more moisture down under in the soil for the veggies to grow better.
It's the same recipe. Vegetables, lawn. It all goes back to the nature. 400 million years doing it this way. So whether it's your vegetables and you want the most tasty, nutritious, because now it's not just NPK in your soil for the plants, it's all of them. It's all of it from this biological process. The only things maybe missing would be some minerals. Minerals come from the bedrock, more or less. So before the first plant walked on land, it was all rock. And so whatever that rock was is how the plant started decomposing on top of, and that's where our minerals come from. So not all the minerals. Our bedrock around here is limestone, right? We grow that locally, and we also grow field stones from Canada in the glacial outwash. So we'll get gravel and sand around here as well. Very nice mineral. That's where all the clay comes from. Who's dug down and found clay, right? That's the glacial outwash. Lots of minerals in there, but you can't really grow a lot in it. So we put the leaves on there, the biology, and now we have like a very, very good, healthy root zone. All right, so that's how we start with the soil. Now here come the maintenance techniques. So we want to mow at the highest setting. That is because the longer the blade of grass, the longer the shadow it throws onto the ground, and weed seeds and grass seed is all looking for sunlight, moisture, and a warm day to germinate. So if we can keep a little bit of that shadow on the ground, that reduces weed seeds from germinating. So mow at your highest setting. Leave the clippings. So you leave the clippings because if you've got the biology there, they're hungry. And they're going to eat this in a few days. I know everyone's like, leave the clippings. It'll track them into the house. But no, you're going to feed these guys and it won't be there for long, depending on the temperature and the moisture. And the leaf blade itself is mostly nitrogen. So you're recycling back the nitrogen into the soil instead of taking it away. It's like the same thing when we take the leaves away, we've stopped that forest process. You're doing it on your lawn. Okay, again, lawns are water intensive. These guys, they need about an inch of water per week. So how do you know if it's rained an inch? You might have a rain gauge. You can check with Tom Skilling. Yeah, he likes to tell you how much it's rained, mother. And you know, if it shows that it's rained half an inch over the last 7 days, how much do we put down? Half an inch, right. Then there's how do you know how much is your sprinkler putting out? That's that tuna can out there, capture it. That's a half inch. And then you know what your own formula is for your house on making sure you get 1 inch a week. And do it all at once. If you water the top, the roots are looking for the water. They'll tend to stay up here. So get it all down in 1 week, especially if you're after the spring rains start letting up. Don't let your yard just dry out. You keep that there and you'll grow deep roots with this watering. And then core aeration. This is one of the second most important things to do in your yard. We mow, we play, we run around, and we compress this area of our lawns. The soil gets compressed here. The plants rarely can break through that compaction to get deeper. So we break it up. Here come deeper roots. You can also get nutrients and water down into that deeper area. That's why this is so important. It does everything that we're looking for to help the lawn fight weeds, is this. There was one more point about it. So, air and water get in. So, you know the story about how you can go without food. Humans can go without food for a long time, right. Then how long can we go without water? It's like a week or two, right? I haven't tried.
A couple of days.
Yeah. A couple of days, right, depending on what I had last night. And then how long can you go without oxygen? Yeah, not long at all. So the whole point here is the same with plants. They need air just like we do. They need the food and they need the water. And if we're not providing them the air, they're not healthy either. So this is one of the biggest important things to do in your lawn on an organic basis, aeration.
Yeah, it says overseed with leaf compost. What do you describe that?
Yeah, so we're about to get into, now if at the same time, right after you did this, you come in with either the leaf mulch or the compost, okay? I think I wrote this when they were the same term. These are two terms now I've mixed up here. So do it with compost, because now you're bringing in more of that biology. And then the overseeding. So you stuff your lawn with grass. Then it really is able to outcompete the weeds. This is the next thing. Aerate and overseed. And if you do that every year, this is really low cost. Yes. When was the last time you overseeded? Do you know that the plant, they're good for about 3 to 5 years. And if we're mowing it before it goes to seed, which probably isn't viable, but you see, we're working with old plants that need to be revitalized. And we just don't realize that. So overseed with compost after a core aeration, boom, that's it. And the rest is going to be easy. That's the secret right there.
Is now the time to core aerate?
Yes. Yeah, it's actually not that wet, so you're not going to end up just pushing the... Yeah, if it is wet or it's been raining like spring, we tend to wait till the soil has dried out a little. We want a nice, good plug to come out. And then, but yes, now is a great time to do that.
Watch the wet.
Yes.
So that mow at the highest setting of the leaf clippings, is that throughout the entire summer? Or do you eventually stop leaving clippings and get them off?
Right. The question is, do we leave the clippings all year round, or is there a time that we would pick up the clippings? It's pretty much year round. No reason not to leave them.
Don't you suffocate when you leave too much though?
Oh, that's the myth. Don't we suffocate the lawn if we leave the grass clippings on? Well, if they're really thick, and that, when the mower's wet and you bound that piece up, yeah, that's a little different.
Spread it out.
Yeah, if it's spread out on a drier mow, yes, so you would pick them up if you've got that wet thing clumping at the bottom of your mower, for sure, or kick it around. But if you've got the soil biology going, they're going to get right to work and start decomposing if you've got it.
We've got sod all over the place, and I've been taking the clippings and composting it because I believe there's too much nitrogen in the soil. And come this spring, a lot of that long grass has turned brown, and Noel says, water the good grass, you've got a problem.
So the question is, You like to pick it up because you're afraid there's too much
well,
nitrogen?
I leave it on. Yeah, I leave it on the parkway, but I collect it so it doesn't rot the grass.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
His question is, he really wants to pick up the clippings because he's
In the sodded area.
in the sodded area, the lawn, because there might be some downside.
Because it might cause the leaves to rot because of so much nitrogen.
So if you're concerned about nitrogen, let's get a soil sample,
Right.
because that's one of the NPK.
Well,
The
you
N.
figure if it's really green, there's a lot of nitrogen, right?
What's the source of nitrogen? And the plant needs nitrogen all year round.
Yeah.
So without seeing it, I would still say, as long as it's not thick, dense grass on your grass, it should decompose and provide nitrogen. But if you're get a test, so you know that you're right about, I have too much nitrogen, let's take away the grass.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the cheaper one, cheap soil sample.
Would you have a question about the overseeding of leaf compost? Let's say I was going to make a volume gallon of leaf compost with seeds, because it sounds like you're sort of doing the same.
Sort of, yes.
What sort of? Well, so let's say you have, how much of that would it be like a little handful of seeds to that much? Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
What's the ratio?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The question is, how do you do the overseeding with compost?
Yeah.
What we're doing, and we can do it fairly quickly, is we want to get the grass seed down first. So we core-aerate, get the seeds on, and then a quarter inch of compost. Quarter inch, a little more. This is going to break down. Just so that you know we've got some contact of the soil and the seed for germination. And then you got to water or hope it rains so that seed stays moist till it germinates, which can be, read the bag, 1 to 31 days. Same with weed seeds. They're waiting for moisture, sunlight, and warmth. All right, so that's the proper maintenance.